Hi friends, this is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolfpack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes sharing our opinions on a ton of different topics in hopes we can get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our opinions and experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals, no one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences, our opinions, and for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone, welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. We hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy and I'm the host of the show. And today you guys, we're on episode 134, Human Trafficking. Now guys, a couple things about this one. For one, apologize. A lot of these topics this season have been very dark. I acknowledge that. I apologize for tormenting and torturing all of the co-hosts and the researchers and the fans. So sorry. Didn't realize how dark it was until we really started looking back and Haley pointed out how dark it actually is. So again, apologies guys, but these are things I think we really need to talk about, especially trafficking. So you guys will see that we struggled immensely. We have been trying to record this episode for 2 days now. Riverside has given me nothing but issues. We thought we solved it tonight. It did not work. Tried to record it. So we jumped on a Zoom meeting, never used Zoom before to record. We have no idea how this is actually going to pan out. I have no idea, just recorded it. We'll see. Hopefully it's going to actually be a video and not just audio, but yeah, we'll be working with Riverside to fix that ASAP. But that's just what happens. Sometimes you just go, and after 5 seasons, you still find fucking shit that's stupid. It's never been easy, ever. We know this, so just being real with you guys, this episode might be a bit choppy, but it's a very important topic, even though it is dark. I think a lot of people think that trafficking does not happen in our backyard, and in fact, it does. Very much so. So we make sure that we want to talk about it and highlight all the different kinds, talk about some science and statistics right here in Canada. But before we get on to this episode that hopefully goes over well in editing and post-editing, I just want to remind you guys, if you are watching, if this ends up being a video on YouTube or Rumble, please make sure that you subscribe and like the video, turn on notifications, comment for engagement. If you are listening on the audio, which hopefully is not the only platform we get to post this, will be you can follow us there and it gives notifications and give us a review. Or if you are on social media, Instagram, Facebook, our Pinterest is lit. You guys are watching our pins all the time, which is absolutely amazing. We had no idea that was going to be such a fun platform. Make sure to follow us on all of those. And again, if you guys have episodes you want to hear, videos, topics, anything that you guys want to share with us to bring up, or if you want an episode yourself, just let us know. Other than that, let's get on to the episode and let's see what actually happens here. Wish me luck. All right, babes, it's time to get on the show. And today in studio, I have my beautiful co-host, Hales, with me. Hey, babe, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Guys, you have to know how hard we've been trying to record this episode. I don't even know if it's going to work. And I just want to say it right now. We've been trying for 2 days.
We've been jumping through has been on fire and like spitting acid at us. My God.
And it's so weird because you think by now, like we've gone through so many like kinks and issues that like no new ones would pop up, and then all of a sudden the last 2 days have been.
It's been nothing but tech issues, like
nothing but tech issues. So
we're y'all are getting this Zoom today.
Yeah, we're Zooming today. No idea how this is going to pop out. No idea what the layout's going to be like. But we've been trying to record this for like almost a week now, and it's not working. And this is really, really dark topic, but really important one. And so we're figuring it out. We're going to
push through and
make
break
it work. Yeah, fuck that. Like, you know, it's just like, you know, you want me to cry and break down? No, I've already done that 6 times this week. Just kidding. But anyways, guys, backing into dark topics again, talking about trafficking, and me and Hales went down some deep rabbit holes, which, you know, are interesting and terrible and scary all at the same time, you know? So it's like, I said in the intro, like, and in Hales, you'll hear it. I just apologize for, you know, how you brought up, we are talking about darker topics, and it does suck because it's like, you want to talk about it, but it sucks, and
You want
it is,
people
it's
to be aware,
depressing.
but it's hard to process sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So apologies again, to everyone. But hopefully, we can, the being reals, hopefully a little bit lighter, more opinionated ones. But this one, guys, I think is important because I don't think people think it happens in our backyard.
Yeah, it was really hard going down some of the trails I followed because being a new mom, it just like ignites nothing but like terror and fear in your heart. But it's crazy how many stories there are out of Canada.
I
It's
know I
like
have some
very
stats and it freaks
alarming
me out.
and very just eye-opening.
Yeah,
It was scary to look into
yeah.
for sure.
Yes, yeah. And it's like, always keeping in mind with these topics, like, we just like we say, like, it's good to know about this stuff. It's good to be aware. It's good to try and like work through how you can try and protect yourself the best you can.
Yeah.
But you also can't be completely taken hostage by this stuff either, too, right? Like you still have to live your life. But I think
Don't let
knowledge
it,
is
yeah,
power.
consume you the way it can. And that's one thing I was going to say is you when you go down these like this one and like anything to do with children, in my opinion, those are the
Yeah.
ones that can really get you like mentally like stuck and like just assuming the worst, thinking the worst, like, oh my god, everything's the worst. Like
Yeah.
it just shows the darkest side of humanity. I wouldn't even call it humanity. It's just the darkest side of human beings. And it's a lot. So yeah, do your best to you don't drown in it if you do go
Yeah.
look. Just be
Yeah.
careful.
And then the flip side, don't be ignorant to it either, because I think that's like the biggest, and no victim or anybody that is like, involved in any of this as, not victims, but I won't say that word, but you know what I'm saying? Like I'm sure there's a lot of ways that like, we could say, oh, well, try to do these things. But at the end of the day, like these people are fucking crazy and they're clever and
And
they're
they've come up with
collective,
way more avenues to do this too, especially with
especially
like
now with the internet.
the internet and just like catfishing in general. Like it's got longer reach. It's got longer
Yeah.
arms to grab into new victims, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary.
And just like we were saying with the online too, and with the grooming and stuff, right? Like that's where he said, I feel like that kind of starts with some of it, not all of it. Like there's all different ways that people
Oh
do
yeah.
this. And I think when people think human trafficking, I know that people have like different ideas of what that is. So, obviously we were going to go through and talk about these things. And I don't, I don't think I really fully understood. Like I think you know about it, but then
Yeah.
you don't like comprehend that this is actually happening. You're like, this is just words on a website.
It's a
But then you watch the
movie.
videos, it's a
You
movie, and then
see
you
it
watch
in
the
movies,
videos.
you see it
Yeah.
in things like it's fantastical in a sense.
Yes, yeah. It just, and I feel like they did that where it's like, oh, that only happens in the movies or like the really bad places of the world.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's like,
No.
really? No, no, it happens right here in Canada, and I'll have stats to show you. But yeah,
The
let's just go through.
at the same side that those movies are very true that it does happen in like foreign countries, the movie Hostel, where they pay extra for Americans and Canadians and shit, is also like a thing. So
Yes,
just keep that in mind.
absolutely.
Like there's two
Yeah,
sides to that piece of toast, and they're both pretty
100%.
fucking burnt, in my opinion.
There's two pieces to that. It's not even there. It's just fucking crumbs at this point.
It
Like,
is cancerous black like tar toast. Like that is
yeah,
just
tar
not a good
toast.
piece of toast. I'm
No,
just
it's
gonna
not a
say
good piece of
no.
toast. Do you remember that movie Superstar? I don't remember if you remember a
Yes.
scene where the priest is like chewing on the toast and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that one, but he's like eating the toast, and he's like choking on it. It's that toast.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and I think that for me it's like same thing. Like it's like, oh, that just happens like once in a while, kids go missing, and then maybe that's what happens. But then it's like over the last couple of years, I think that a lot of people, when they started their, awakening, learning of the corruption, I think a lot of us ended up here at child trafficking. I think a lot of us fell into
Yeah.
like the Pizzagate stuff. And what was crazy is like watching Out of the Shadows and them talking about Pizzagate and
Yeah.
the fall of the cabal and all of those ones. But then I was watching, and I can't remember, I think it was like I can't remember his name, so I'm not going to say it. Some guy's podcast, and because I was looking for the show about trafficking, and it was one of the world's like most vigilante hackers that hacks in and actually it like stops
It's scary.
child porn. And it like
Probably see some
they were
gross
sitting
stuff.
there. Yes, they were sitting there and reading what these like parents were saying about their kids. Like there was like a literal, I get like, we're gonna get kicked off so many platforms. There was literally a father or mother didn't know, like selling their child pictures of the child in the bathtub, and it was 6 years old, and I was like, who wants a piece of her? Blah blah blah. Like, I don't think people fully understand that parents and like people are selling like young children for, not just forced labor, not just for, like sexual exploitation or the black market. Like, they are like making them into little sex slaves, and it's disgusting. I watched a video back in
That's a thing of nightmares and of TV
Europe.
shows. Like,
Yes, yes, but it's real. And this guy, like,
yeah,
literally his job, like, he grew up like learning how to be a hacker. I have to post his name. I can't remember right now, but he grew up as a hacker, and then he was a parent, and he like turned his life around. And then one of his friend's mom sent she I don't even know how she came across it. Became across this website. It was like rapey.co or something like that.
oh, I
And
have
yeah,
seen that.
yeah, the interview. It was
That and
insane. That's
that
what I sent to you guys the other day.
Yeah, that
Uh,
that website is what triggered it, because I'm like, he went to that
yeah,
guy's house. That guy
yeah.
like was completely blank, and he like brought him. He's like you do realize what you were. It was like almost like To Catch a Predator in a
Yes,
sense.
exactly like
That
that.
was
Exactly like
yeah,
that. And one of the main guys running it was actually someone that I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was some sort of politician or
yeah,
some sort of council, something like that. And they knew about it, and people still voted. He was like a Democratic something, I remember. But it was just wild to me. Like, I'll try to remember when this podcast airs to link those other podcasts that I was watching. And this is very disturbing, but it's like, he's like, now I just feel like all I have to do is keep like shutting it down. And that website has gotten shut down. But we're talking like 5, 6, 7, 8 year old children. Like,
yeah. I
this
don't.
isn't, like OnlyFans where there's adults that are consenting. Even though I still have my issues
Yeah,
with that, but like, this is a whole other playing field. And
keeping
what freaks me out the most is this AI, and we already seen it in the filters where it makes people look older or
yeah
younger. Like, how many kids and young adults are being trafficked and put
exploited.
through those filters and exploited on OnlyFans and Pornhub and all those things. Like, to me, I just to me, it can't exist
Keep in
until that.
mind too that like the internet is a very like vast and powerful thing.
Yeah.
However, they have been able to label and plaster like warnings for 3 years now. They've been able to completely cancel and like erase things and people from the internet. However,
No, it's
this
fine.
is still like
It's fine.
flourishing and like a
Yeah,
booming business. And it is a business. Do not
it
get
is a
that wrong.
business. Yes, absolutely it is.
It is
So
oh
it's
so
disgusting. So we thought, like, because maybe people don't know, and maybe you guys do, but I just, as usual, pulled this off Wiki. So I've just got like kind of, basic what everybody's pulling off
that's
of Google. Like, if they give me enough, I'm gonna go there. I don't need to go darker to
yeah.
find it. So, like, what is exactly human trafficking? So it's obviously the trade of humans for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercialized sexual exploitation. Human trafficking can occur within a country or transnationally. It is distinct from people smuggling, which is characterized by the consent of the person being smuggled. Yeah. So if someone's asking to like cross the border
Yeah,
illegally, that's
that's
like people
smuggling. That's not
smuggling.
trafficking.
That's where they want it. But then I also kind of wonder too, like the ones that are being smuggled, obviously they want it, but there's obviously some sort of negative transaction that's going to be happening there too,
I feel
right?
like
Like,
they're neither of them are like, yeah, a positive thing, but
no,
smuggling is more of
at
a
least it's like
it's
it's not
more of a
forced.
consensual thing than just being
Yeah.
taken without yeah
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah. And what I find interesting is that, not interesting, but and so it should be. But again, like, who the fuck cares about our rights? But human trafficking is condemned as a violation of human rights by international conventions, but legal protection varies globally. The practice has millions of victims around the world. So I think what the biggest thing with human trafficking too is like in other countries where there's not so much like whether laws are frowned upon about having younger wives or spouses or
Yeah,
multiple things like that. I think in those spaces it kind of gets hard because they're obviously very, very keeping out of other people's marriage lives and sex lives and all of that. So like, and a lot of those, like, not
different
all of
ways.
them, but I imagine there's got to be some sort of arranged marriages where the women's don't feel comfortable, the people don't feel comfortable, but they're forced to. Not always.
Oh,
I know there's lots
totally.
of people that have
Well,
successful ones,
how
but
many of those kind of cultures have it where you're like promised to someone from birth or promised
for
from like
birth,
a
yeah,
few months old to this like 30-year-old dude who by the time you're like 16, 18, 15, 14, he's like old. He's your
yeah,
dad's age. Like
yes,
gross.
Yeah, he's like Hugh Hefner, right? So
You
it's
can't
like,
tell me that that's a consensual, like a lot of those arrangements, not so much nowadays. I feel like that's kind of, I want to say that was more of a thing in the past, which I know I'm not stupid. Like I know that it's still very much probably alive in a lot of places, but
yeah. I
yeah,
imagine it could be positive for sure. Like I definitely imagine that,
yeah. There are
but in the
matches that
same
grow to
sense,
love each other and like stuff like
yeah,
that, but like promising children off and
exactly. That's the problem there. Like I can understand if you're like in
like
your, 20s, 30s, and you're just like, it's just not happening. Like mom and dad help, family help, like
yeah,
100%. Like I fully understand that. But like you said, from child where they don't get a choice or they don't even get to know what that person, like, don't you maybe like after you've watched that child grow up and you see that they're a good person for your child, but just immediately to do that. And I think they obviously did that a lot in the royal families, is like traded daughters for like poultry and like whatever.
hogs.
Anyway,
You get
yeah,
two
exactly.
pigs for your daughter.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, oh, what kind of world are we living in?
Dowries. Well,
Yeah,
dowries were more for goods that like you needed back then. It wasn't so
yeah,
much the golden riches like it is like in
yeah.
more modern times. And then now, I wonder if there like how many cultures still have like proper dowries where you have to give
I
something to the family. I'm sure there's
feel
tons,
like
but
like old Britain
never understood
or
that. But
something like that. No, me neither. But
this one, like
back then, yeah,
this one's crazy because like I feel like my opinion on this is like really weird because like you said, we're saying like it is very much a real thing. It very much happens, trafficking and people getting kidnapped. Like shout out to all the fucking missing indigenous women. That is just fucking bizarre. And no
yeah,
one looks into it or gives two fucks until it helps them in a campaign or something. But um it just like it it just can, I don't know. It I don't even have the words for it. Like it just blows me away that that's like a thing. People selling people and stealing
yeah.
people, and
And
it's
children
just
and
so
forcing
crazy
them.
that like it's hard to like not believe, but it's hard to like put into real life and like think of it as a reality. Like when you go out, like when I go out with Evie by myself to do groceries or something, the simple thing of like I'm sure tons of people, if you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, if you're on social media at all, you've seen these. There's all those videos of like if you see like a napkin in your door, don't fucking touch
Yes,
it because it's drugged. Like
yes,
it puts the fear in you, but like you don't really like I don't know how truly scared or worried I have to be, like
yes, yes,
you
yes,
I feel like it's just one of those very much unknowns and it's a very much underworld thing that we're not like privy to any of that information or like the going ons of. And it's
yeah,
such a hard thing to like, do we have to be very serious about this in my corner of the world? Does it like Edmonton? For sure, I could see it. For
yeah,
sure. But
yeah.
like it's such a scary thing. I
It is.
hate, I really don't like this topic was probably one of my least favorites and hardest to like really like
Sorry.
no.
Sorry,
Like we've talked
it's
about this
all
tons and like you said, we've
I
gone
know.
down it like through the
Yeah,
pandemic, all the whole rabbit holes we've gone down, but it's just this one is the one that's like really I think it's because of all the like when you see it in a movie, it's never a good thing. It is always
no,
the most horrific conditions, the most ridiculous abuse. Transport is awful. The things they're made to do are disgusting. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to think that people can stoop so low as to just like do some of the shit that you hear about.
yeah, 100%. And I think too, maybe you feel this way. It's like I said with the Cabal movies and Out of Shadows, when you hear about Pizzagate and you hear about like all the code words and the
And
way
it's
it was kind of
kids. Yeah.
presented, you almost feel like, okay, I'm glad I know this in a way, but is this really real? And then I watched this recording on YouTube on a podcast of that vigilante talking about the code words
And
and
how it's
saying
very
pizza
real.
and meals. It's very real. And I was just like, oh no, like yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of
Do you
made
have the
it more
numbers on
real.
like Canada? Like, is it like
Yes, I do.
serious?
Yeah, we'll go through this and I'll just go this little
Yeah.
clip bit about some of the different ways that are different types of trafficking. So it says trafficking arrangements are sometimes structured as a work contract, but with no or low payment or on terms which are highly exploitative. They may be also structured as debt bondage, with the victim not being permitted or able to pay off the debt ever.
Yeah.
It may encompass providing a spouse in the context of forced marriage, of the extraction of organs or tissues, including surrogacy and ova removal. I think this is a
Yeah.
big one too. Like we've talked about John of God a little bit. He literally got women and bred them to have babies to child traffic them. There's
Well,
literal like puppy
that's one of
mill.
the biggest things coming out of like Pizzagate and all that is the breeding of these children for the specific purpose of putting
trafficking
them
them.
into the system and on that conveyor belt, and they are in that. Like that,
Yeah,
that is fucked. That is
that's
disgusting. And
disgusting.
truly,
It's
like,
very disgusting.
I have no
I
words
know.
for it. Because
I
that
know.
is gross and scary.
Yes.
Like,
And the reason why too, like we want to talk about this is because like I think it is important. Like I think that if I wouldn't
the
think I'd be like, oh,
awareness.
I'm just playing. Yeah, I'm just playing on my phone with my kids in the park. Like, and I know we're all doing that. I'm not a mom, so I know like how easy it would probably be just to tune that out. But when I know
Eyes
this
up.
shit, I'm like, no, my fucking eyes are on them 24/7. Like, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, I don't think that's terrible to put down your phone for an hour and keep your eyes. Like, I'm not saying you need to watch
Yeah.
them like a hawk, but you know how we get and everyone gets in. I imagine you're the same way when you're a parent. You
Some
get
of
into
those,
like a
yeah, tips.
conversations and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, fuck, it's been 10 minutes. Like, oh my God, where's my kid? Like,
The most common tips and tricks that I was like looking into, the main one was you have to be aware of your surroundings. You
yeah,
have to be very like, I feel like as a mom, you kind of have like a
should
weird
be.
like heightened sense of it because you have to like watch this like literal 25-pound monkey child that doesn't have monkey strength, cannot hold her own body weight, is falling off
Yeah,
shit, climbing up shit. Like it's just crazy. So you have to be a little extra like on it.
aware. Yeah,
But yeah, in a given day, how often are we like head down in your phone,
yeah,
kind of like not we are so disconnected from like surroundings. I feel like that's where our disadvantage is these days. We're so
yeah,
distracted by so many things. It's so
yeah.
crazy. You
Yes,
do
I
not get
completely
a
agree.
good peripheral or a good sense of what's around you because you are so like on your
Focus.
phone, talking on your phone, like it's
Watching a
crazy.
video, reading
Yeah.
a fucking argument and or
Hell, listening to
arguing with somebody
music,
online or
earphone
listening
in.
to
You can't
music.
hear the shit around you. You can't like
Yeah. And
that,
I don't want
that
to
was the
be
main
that
thing.
like,
Yeah. Be
but yeah,
aware
you
of your
need to be aware.
surroundings.
Yeah. So different types of trafficking. Trafficking children involves the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, and receipt of children for the purpose of exploitation. Commercial sexual exploitation of children can take many forms, including forcing a child into prostitution or other forms of sexual activity or child pornography. Child exploitation may involve forced labor or services, slavery, or practices similar to slavery, servitude, and the removal of organs. Illicit international adoption. That's a hard one. Trafficking for early marriage, recruitment as child soldiers for use in begging, or as athletes such as child camel jockeys or football trafficking.
So what you
Um,
just did you just say like trafficking children for adoption? So like
that's
people pay
a good one.
extra to have like a colored baby or like some fancy designer baby. Is that what that is?
I think it's more or less that there's people that go down there and
For the
steal the
black
children
market
from the.
adoption.
Yeah, well, I think that they go down there and steal the children. Like, do you know that chick that was working for Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
And she went down there and she got caught trying to, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just helping these kids." No, they were literally going down there and stealing them and
Snatching
bringing them.
children
And
and putting them for
yeah,
adoption here and making
yeah,
money.
and I don't think that the parents knew that, but I think they're like, "Hey, come adopt our kids from here. Like, you're saving them from, this terrible life." Meanwhile, they're actually stealing these children and
Sounds like she pulled a she was trying to pull a Madonna. Fuck. Just go
a
steal some
hundred percent.
children.
100%. Or Angelina Jolie, like, come on, guys. Like, I just,
My
so to me,
God,
that's
man. What
so that's
is
where it's like, I get nervous because I'm like, and it's not that I wouldn't want to help a child from internationally. Like, I think that would be really great. But then it's like, how the
absolutely.
fuck do I know that it's not stolen from their family? Like,
Well,
how
the
do I
worst
know that
part
they
is,
don't
is
do
like you
that?
don't know that those big corporations and big companies that do proper adoptions aren't doing the same damn thing
A hundred
because
percent. Oh, I
we
would want
know
like a
damn well
personal one.
that like all the good intention businesses in the world have the very dark and seedy underbelly of that world. And look at Planned Parenthood. You want a fucking
Yeah.
dirty ass rabbit hole? That one's another fucking real
That has,
hard
oh,
to
I feel like it
open.
kind of all links into this shit too, right? Like,
Well, I hate to say it too, the baby harvesting is such an ugly term, and I can't believe that just came out my mouth so like fluidly. But yeah,
real
like
though.
trafficking children for the adrenochrome, which is, believe it or not,
I
like
believe it. I
probably
believe
a
it. I
thing.
don't, I,
They
I
say it's
don't.
made in the lab, but I don't know, some of the things I've seen and heard, apparently it's
If
straight.
it was,
You can't duplicate it in a lab.
no,
It's such a
and that's what I mean.
natural
Like, if
synthesis.
it if it was actually made in a lab, why wouldn't it be made more available and to everybody then? You know what I'm saying? Like,
It's
why is it
just,
so hidden
and why
and
is it
like
so hush hush and such
a
a taboo
conspiracy theory?
topic?
Exactly. When we know they like to fucking make money off of
Yeah.
anything. So let's be real here. People would pay a lot of fucking money if maybe they didn't know why. If they said, "Oh, we just created this in a lab, but hey, it's going to give you eternal youth."
I feel
A
like
lot of people would pay dirty money for that.
the crazy part is like, I feel like child trafficking is like the big one that most people think of when you say trafficking. But the
Yeah.
first you mentioned of like someone moving from a foreign country with nothing and like really shitty conditions,
Yeah.
has no money and comes here and has to work or pay off, that's essentially a form of human trafficking, because a lot of the times they come here not in proper routes and like everything like that, and they're coming here with a promise of, yeah, come make some money, and they think it's being a waitress or
Yeah.
whatever, and it turns out to be something very much not, and it's a full-on sex ring. Like, it is all human trafficking really only ever leads to one thing, and it is always sex, and it's truly gross. Like, I can't see most trafficking, the labor trafficking is probably a very small percent.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely there, but I definitely think it's a smaller percent,
I
which is
feel like,
actually the next one
yeah,
that we're just talking about was child labor is a form of work that may be hazardous to the physical, mental, spiritual, moral, and social development of children and can interfere with their education. According to the International Labor Organization, the global number of children involved in child labor fell during the 12 years to 2012. It has declined by one third from 246 million in 2000 to 168 children in 2012. Sub-Sahara Africa is the region with the highest incidence of child labor, while the largest numbers of child workers are found in Asia and the Pacific. So I
I
think maybe
feel
that's
like,
why it doesn't feel like as large to us, because I feel like it's not like it definitely happens in the
yeah,
West. Like it definitely does. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I feel like, yeah, like I said, that's definitely more over at another part of the world. So
yeah,
I feel like we don't see that, but I feel like the sexual trafficking and the sexual
is
exploitation,
American in North
it
America,
is Western.
world,
Yeah, that is like statistically
worldly.
correct that Western side of the world are the biggest perverts. They consume the most pornography. They have the most child trafficking charges. They have the most of everything is the West world. So this isn't like, oh, this is stuff that
Yeah,
happens in other world.
yeah.
Okay, maybe the child labor happens over there a little bit more, like talking about the battery mines and all
I
that,
still,
apple mines. But
I was thinking about it too, and like it always comes down to sex, but it always comes back to children and like younger people too, because I feel like while trafficking adults is a thing, we're much harder to like, we have the physical power in a lot of
yeah,
cases to like fight back, and we make it much more difficult. And that is such a like current thing right now. That's why we are so hard on protecting our fucking children. Because
100%.
I think now more than ever, it just like everything going on highlights how they are so vulnerable.
They are
They
very
are
vulnerable.
our future. They are like the future of this fucking whole thing we got
Everything.
going on here in life, our planet.
And who's
And
gonna take
they're
over the podcast? Evie, obviously.
right. And like, it's just crazy that, I don't know, just to put in perspective, like they are the most vulnerable. And like the fact that people are pissed that we're like trying to stand up for them in this capacity or whatever capacity is kind of weird to me. Cause yeah,
Definitely.
trafficking women, I feel like it would definitely go like adults and men are like
Yep.
here, women, and then
Yeah.
children. Like men
100%.
are probably actually lower. Like it'd
Yeah.
be hard to
There are less
traffic grown
traffic
men.
for sure.
They probably, it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't,
Yeah.
but the percentage of men versus women and children is going to be like significantly lower.
Yeah, and it is too for sure. The International Labor Organization, and then also too, like keeping in mind that child labor could still be child sex labor too, right? Like so
Yeah.
that does include that portion of it. But there is that other part that
It's
they,
the umbrella. It's under the
yeah,
child
the
labor
umbrella
umbrella.
for sure. Yeah. So the International Labor Organization claims that forced labor in the sex industry affects 4.5 million people worldwide. Most victims find themselves in coercive or abusive situations from which escape is both difficult or dangerous.
Yeah.
Trafficking for sexual exploitation was formerly thought of as organized movement of people, usually women, between countries and within countries for sex work with the use
Yeah.
of physical coercion, deception, and bondage through forced debt.
Well,
However, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act in 2000 for the US does not require movement for the offense. The issue becomes contentious when the element of coercion is removed from the definition to incorporate facilitation of consensual involvement in prostitution. So in 2000, it switched from, because it's like, um, there's still people that do this prostitution consensually, right? And there's still
yeah.
that piece
Well,
of
there
that.
are the people that come here with like that, like in mind, and yeah, that's their choice, but there are
Yeah.
also many more that aren't. Heads up, we've got 10 minutes left in this meeting.
Wow. Okay. So maybe what we'll
uh,
do is just end it and start another one. I don't know.
oh
Okay.
no.
This is the thing. Well, guys, we're going to try and do this and I'll try and
Squeeze
edit the
this
best
in.
I
If
can.
not, we'll make it a two-parter and we'll
Yeah. Two
sandwich
part.
them
Yeah.
together or
Yeah.
something. But
Yeah. I can try and edit this. We'll figure it out. And if not, then I guess you guys are listening to
contact
this
with
fucking
Riverside and
audio.
we'll try and fix that up. But
Yeah, Riverside is on my shit list right now. Okay, so I'll try and go through these a little bit more, just the other types that we have, and then maybe the
yeah,
next one we'll go through stats and your tips. So, trafficked women and children are often promised to work in the domestic or service industry, but instead are sometimes taken to brothels where they are required to undertake sex work, while their passports and other identification papers are confiscated. They may be beaten or locked up and promised their freedom only after earning through prostitution their purchase price as a way of their travel or visa costs. And this happens quite a
it's
bit.
crazy to
I
think that
feel.
brothels are legal in a lot of places too, because I feel like
No.
that is like in a lot of cases they're like very much consenting and willing participants, but at the same time that is just like asking for nothing but trafficking
Yes.
problems in my book.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's good people, but there's going to be bad.
Yeah.
So on to the other types of forced marriage that we talked about. So forced marriage is a marriage where one or both participants are married without their freely given consent. And that's what I'm not okay with.
Yeah.
Servile marriage is defined as a marriage involving a person being sold, transferred, or inherited into that marriage.
See
Um,
that that's inherit
uh,
you inherit people. What is
I
that?
would like to inherit a grandfather clock or some jewelry, not a human being. According to ECPAT, child trafficking for forced marriage is simply another manifestation of trafficking. It is not restricted to particular nationalities or countries. Forced marriages have been described as a form of human trafficking in certain situations and certain countries such as China and Southeast Asia, Asian neighbors, for which many women are moved to China, sometimes through promises of work and forced to marry Chinese men. Ethnographic research with women, I'm so sorry, I'm going to butcher this, from Myanmar and Cambodia found that many women eventually get used to their life in China and prefer it to the one that they had in their home countries. Furthermore, legal scholars have noted that transnational marriage brokering was never intended to be considered trafficking by the drafters of the Polaro Protocol. So I guess basically it's saying like, sometimes it does end up being better because their lives end up being better than they were. So there are, but it's like,
That's a
but
sad part about it though. Like how
yeah,
brutal
how
was their
bad
life
was it?
before that, coming here being like a sex slave for all intents and purposes is
Yes,
better than what you had.
yes, I know. I don't
Not
quite
saying about the
understand that.
conditions of the rest of our world. Like
Yes, yes,
what?
absolutely. Just trying to get through these for these 10 minutes.
Oh
We're
yeah.
almost there and we'll
6 minutes, six
labor.
and a half. We're good.
Yes, okay, okay, we got the rest of these because I only have two left. So labor trafficking is the movement of persons for the purpose of forced labor and services. It may involve bonded labor, involuntary servitude, domestic servitude, and child labor. Labor trafficking happens most often within domain of domestic work, agriculture, construction, manufacturing, and entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
And
that's like
migrant
the yeah.
yeah, and migrant workers and indigenous people are especially at risk of becoming victims. People smuggling is related practice, which is characterized by the consent of the person being smuggled, which we talked about. Those situations can descend into human trafficking, though, through coercion, exploitation. Obviously, right? Because they're like, "I'm getting you in, and now you're going to give me this." Like, this is where
Yeah.
it's like, I don't really think it's necessarily better that there's consent because there's still an opportunity of exploitation once you get there. They're known to traffic people for the exploitation of their labor, for example, transporters. And
I
then
think it's ugly
one,
that they like target specific demographics, it sounds like that, like I'm sorry, but that right there, anyone with a brain that has any kind of capacity to look into the missing indigenous women and women of color and stuff, hello.
yes. Hi, hello. This
Hello.
is, are we not looking at all of this? Hi,
Let's
hello,
look
right
over
here.
here. Like, what the
Hello, hello. This over here. Don't tell me you don't have the fucking money for it. And then the final form of trafficking that I looked up here was trafficking of organs. It's a form of
fuck?
obviously human trafficking. It can take different forms. In some cases, the victim is compelled into giving up an organ. In other cases, victim agree to sell an organ in exchange of
Robbed.
money goods, but it is not paid or paid less. Um, Finally, the victim may have the organ removed without the victim's knowledge, usually when the victim is treated for another medical problem or illness, real or orchestrated problem. I've heard this quite a few
Or
times
when you
before.
wake
They're
up in
like,
the fucking bathtub of ice on a
"Ah,
vacation.
yeah, like for migrant workers, homeless persons, and illiterate persons are particularly vulnerable to this form of exploitation.
Fuck.
Trafficking of organs is an organized crime involving several offenders, such as the recruiter, the transporter, the medical staff, the middleman and
Don't think
contractors,
this
and then
isn't
the
happening
buyer.
at big hospitals and like stuff like
Oh
that
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah,
Because if you've
absolutely.
seen the list, I remember a while ago, or like this was like years ago, there was like a list floating around of like what a
What
heart,
things were.
lungs,
Mhm.
bones were
Yeah.
worth. All the organs were listed out, liver, spleen, everything, kidneys. And then they had like brain, they had eyes, they had like everything on there. And like when people need transplants, they need transplants, whether they get it from
Wow.
a reputable place or a fucking
And
like
how do you know they're not
backdoor
reputable? Like,
dealer of
right?
a fucking heart. Like
Yep.
what?
100%.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so trafficking of organ trade often seeks kidneys the most. I think that's like kind of like a well-known
kidney
thing.
disease.
Yeah, trafficking organs is a very lucrative business because in many countries, the waiting list for patients who need transplants are very, very long. Some, I guess there has been some solutions proposed to counter it, but they've never ever like fully countered anything. So, never really fixed it, and it's still obviously happening. And I think we see
Yeah.
that a lot with like just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of gross stuff out there. Like you hear, like the Oprah, like putting, or was it Oprah? Whoever was putting
No,
the
it was
like,
yeah, it was. I think Oprah uses this where they have Steve Harvey squirt this like serum
yes,
in his hand. And he
and
was like,
it's
oh, and they're
foreskin.
rubbing it. He was like, oh yeah, it's nice, it's soft. And she's like, yeah, that's actually from it wasn't it like more specific or no, that was a interview with Ellen where they said they put like Asian child foreskin
Yeah,
cream,
that's what it was. Yeah,
essentially.
foreskin. And I'm like, okay, where do you get that? And then you like wonder, like, is
I
that
shouldn't
a whole
know.
business? Yeah. Well, and then you do hear
Fuck.
like, and I'm not saying all the time, but you do hear about like,
Foreskin lotion
a,
on your face?
yeah, but you do hear. I've heard like that they do use some stuff from aborted babies for like vaccine stuff. Like, I don't know if that's true, but like you get again wonder, like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. But let's go over to some statistics. So stats. This one was kind of weird, man. I was actually kind of shocked at the stats that came out of this Statistics Canada. So Nova Scotia had the highest average annual rate of police reported human trafficking between 2011 and 2021.
Nova
2.7 incidents.
Scotia?
Yeah, 2.7 incidents per 100,000 population. Isn't that wild? I mean, I kind of get it, I guess, where it is, but I don't know why. I just did not think that that would
I
be
wouldn't
the
have thought it was East Coast. I
top.
would think Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, like the typical big our big hubs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this was very shocking to me, kind of. And it was
I
some
feel
more and
like
some were.
they've got a lot of boat access, which that's like,
Yes.
I don't know if that's rude or not, but like boats, I feel like more often than not are involved in smuggling and trafficking of people
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
borders
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
countries. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was like covered by a lot of water too, or like around a lot of water. In
Yeah.
2021 specifically, some provinces had rates of human trafficking that were higher than the national rate of 1.4 incidents. So Nova Scotia was 5.3, Ontario was 2.3, and Saskatchewan was 1.8. Proportionately,
Saskatchewan.
62. Yeah, 62% of human trafficking incidents were reported in Ontario and 10% were reported in Nova Scotia, despite the respective populations for these
Oh,
provinces, accounting for 39% and 3% of the Canadian population in 2000-2001. Isn't that a little wild? Like, I did not expect
so it's
Saskatchewan and
East
Nova Scotia.
Coast.
Yeah,
Not to
which
say
I
it
did not
doesn't happen
expect.
here, but like I'm shocked that
Oh, for
it's
sure.
East Coast.
Same. I was really shocked by these numbers. The relatively high number of incidents in Ontario may be attributed to the concentration of urban areas in the province. Such
Yeah.
population centers may form part of human trafficking corridors used by traffickers to increase profits, avoid detection, and isolate victims through psychological control. Further, with the high volume of land border crossings in Ontario, 36% of human trafficking incidents reported in the province between 2011 and 2021 were IRPA related. What did IRPA mean again? I was going to look it up and then I forgot. See if it let me click. No, I'll have to look it up. In Nova Scotia, its a coastal location is likely an important factor in the relatively high proportion of human trafficking and incidences in the province. Since 2011, 42% of human trafficking incidents in Nova Scotia were related to IRPA offenses, the highest of any province in the territory. Why didn't I go and save
Hold
that?
on.
Are you looking at it right now?
IRP offenses. I'm Googling it right now.
Oh, now we're frozen. Fuck.
IRP?
Oh no. This is gonna be fun. Oh,
IRP.
there you are.
Immediate roadside. No, that's not right.
I mean, it's just like specific.
It's saying immediate roadside prohibition, but that's not correct. Oh, is an IRP a criminal charge? Okay, but what is
Yes.
it though?
Yeah, it's part of the criminal code, it says. Why didn't I look that up? Oh, you can tell I'm tired lately.
DUI, when you are served with an IRP, you are not technically arrested. Immediate roadside prohibition is what it's saying in these.
Interesting, interesting. Thanks, Google. You did nothing for us here. Well, I'll keep looking here. IRPA related.
Oh,
Human trafficking.
IRPA.
IRPA, yeah.
Oh.
No, what is IRPA?
Immigration and
Immigration
Refugee
and
Protection
Refugee
Act.
Protection Act. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, so that
Stupid.
we're learning, guys. We learn all the time on this show. So between 2011 and 2021, 90% of police reported human trafficking incidents had a criminal code or IRPA related human trafficking offense listed as the most
So they were
serious violation.
immigrants.
Yes, 6 in 10 human trafficking incidents involved human trafficking offenses only, while 4 in 10 had another type of violation.
I hate to say it, but fucked up people such as Trudy and like corrupt leaders of the world
Yes.
makes you really think twice on why they're bringing so many refugees in,
Yes.
so many families and children and women and like
Are they making them
I
vulnerable and
hate
just
to
like
think
taking
about
them
it, but yeah, are they bringing them in to
with this
like up their
promise
chances and like because
of
we
a
know
better
I'm
life?
sorry if you don't already assume that Trudeau's a part of some really weird fucking shit. I feel like there's something like you need to pull your head out of the sand. But
Stop using
I could
fluoride in
see
your
them, yeah,
toothpaste.
like it increases the population and the chances of I don't
Especially in
want to
that
say
area.
confused families, but yeah, you're in a new place, you don't know what's what. Like it's easy to like misplace your child or like they run away for a second because they see something cool. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And they
I
can't
just like
communicate with
thinking about
everyone
that.
around
Like
them. Like it's very vulnerable. And I just like 100% bring them here if they're protected and taken care of, like 100%. But
you
I don't
can't
think that
force it.
happens. I think they get used in a lot of things because, like I said, they come and they think that Trudeau is this some savior and they don't understand how terrible. And then he puts them in these populations that, not trying to be that way, help him get seats. And, and then you have this on top of it where it's like
He's
it's helping
essentially trafficking
funnel
women to help his
vulnerable
campaign.
minorities in
Yeah.
places that are high traffic areas.
Yeah.
Right. So that confuses me a little bit. Yeah, so most often most offenses were related to the sex trade, so 57%. So
Yeah.
this is in Canada.
Wow. That's Canada. Like that is backyard. That is not third world. That is not like around the world, global, whatever. That is our country. That is Canada. This is why this is called the Be Real Babe podcast
Yeah,
because this shit is real life.
I don't know where to look. Okay,
I had
well,
to put my phone on. Brandy doesn't know where to look.
I don't know where to look. Yeah, so
This
guys,
is gonna test our editing skills or your editing skills for fucking sure.
I have no idea where to look. Anyways,
God.
so I don't know if it's bouncing back. Can you see me twice or can you only see me once?
No, I see you once.
Okay, good. Because on this side, I'm bouncing back. It's like every time I talk, I see myself in my laptop. And then it's like, this is, anyways, whatever, guys. Sorry if this video is totally jacked. We're almost done. I just want to get through this and we're going to have this episode launch. I don't care if I have to like extra edit this. Anyway, so back to statistics after the 13th time. So just know we were committed, guys. We started this at 7 p.m. It is now 8:37. We have recorded maybe 50 minutes, maybe 60, maybe an hour. I don't know. We're having a hard time. Anyways, so last final stats, because these ones are really heavy in my opinion. So there were 2,688 detected victims of police reported human trafficking in Canada between 2001 and 21. We already talked about the percentage.
Yeah.
Right? So the vast majority, 96% of these victims were women and girls, with a small portion, 4%, being men and boys. But get
4%,
this.
that makes sense.
Yes, but get this. Between 2019 and 2021, there were 1,203 victims of human trafficking. So in 10 years, there was 2,688. In the 2 years of the pandemic, there was almost half of the victims. So in 2019, prior to COVID-19 pandemic, there were 411 victims of this type of crime, and the number remained stable in 2020 at 410.
What the
In
hell
2021,
happened?
in 2021, the number of victims declined to 382, marking a 7% decrease in comparison to the number of victims of violent crime in 2021 was 4% higher than 2019 and 6% higher of 2021. So it's like, I feel like that time when everyone's like clumped in together really fucking,
Isn't that wild? I
isn't
feel like
it?
that's when the internet predators came out and did their grooming, which eventually led to trafficking. That's when all the scam artists came out. That's when all like the phone scams were heavy. Shit, those numbers are very surprising.
Yeah, I was a little blown away. And then just age-wise, the last statistic would be since 2011, victims were most often aged 18 to 24, 45%, while another quarter of the victims were aged 17 and younger. So there's that like, yeah, so 75% are, from that young kid to 24, and then 25 to
That
35 was 20, yeah, it was 25%, 35 to 44. Yes, it's 7%. And 45% and older is 3%, which like kind of makes sense when you think about like labor organ harvesting.
yeah,
Like you're obviously going to want
you
to have
can't be
that sounds
harvesting baby
crazy, but
organs and children
yeah,
organs, and labor
no,
isn't
yeah, you
always
want
as
that 25
yeah.
to, yeah, like 18 to 24 range, I imagine is kind of like the bulk of where you see all of that. And as it ages, like I don't think people are going to be like trafficking older women for their organs because,
You
like
age out
we-
of that eventually, but at the same time, like, fuck, I'm sure a lot of those people don't give a fuck, and they probably would
no,
take an old
100%.
man's organ or an old man's lungs or whatever the case is,
Yeah,
right? They're
exactly.
not
Okay,
exactly in
so
the legitimate business of
no,
art
they're not
organ
into the
harvesting.
ethics shit. Yeah, they're not all about ethics there. So what we're to wrap up this episode because guys, like it's happening. This episode's going. If you're listening, congratulations, we made it here. But what are some of the tips that you have that you found?
So some of the tips and tricks. So the one I said was definitely be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what's going on. The second biggest was do not walk, specifically women, alone at night, and just basically just don't do sketch. I don't know. It's hard to like. It said don't do anything alone, which to me is like a little bit of a stretch. But like
You can, but
mostly, in my opinion, would be don't go to pick up like anything off Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, anything like that alone. If you're not feeling comfortable or you get a weird vibe, always trust your gut was one of the main tips. If something feels off,
it probably is.
go with it. The other ones were yeah. So stay vigilant, keep an eye on your surroundings, don't travel alone, don't walk at night, specifically women. Do not go out at night walking around by yourself or even in a small group of girls. I feel like you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Be very careful what you share online.
Yes, please be very aware of it.
So careful. Like Kayla was talking the other day, like with Cash, and Evie will be the same. Oh my god, Nick. And Evie will be the same. She will be told you do not share specifics of where you live. You do not share specifics of our house. You do not post pictures of like the front, like we have before for some renovations, but like you just have to be so conscious of what you're posting.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
very much. Like it is so easy to find almost anything and anyone online these days that you can be targeted. Some of the more extreme, like some of the traffickers that, like I said, they're putting drugged or like laced napkins indoors that you touch it, you get a contact high from whatever drug. A lot of women with children, if you're putting your babies in car seats and your back is turned, you're completely vulnerable. They're using those air or those air tracker things, those Apple
Oh yeah, yeah,
trackers.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
stick it like on a magnet or whatever the case is, and they stick it under your car and they can follow you. Those are easily found by just like your phone will ask to pair to it. So if you're sitting in your car and some random thing comes up, be conscious of that. Anything like coloring on your car, marking it physically, like I feel like parking lots is a big one where like a lot of I'm gonna say random
Yeah.
trafficking where they go and just snatch kids, snatch people. Parking lots are usually pretty good because they're very like
Big event.
aggressive with vehicles and people and sights and sounds and stuff.
Yeah. Disneyland.
Another one is that like when I was looking, a lot of it was how to spot someone that is being trafficked.
Okay, yeah.
And it's some of them were clothes. If they wear the same thing a lot of the time, like the exact same outfit a lot, they always have to ask permission for things or to go places. Just looking like obviously battered and bruised and any kind of physical abuse. um I feel like it's pretty typical of like, I quote CSI a lot because I used to watch CSI a lot, but like you just it's the typical like the battered, bruised, very closed off, very like doesn't come out after work, doesn't do a lot of things. But I also feel like people that are being trafficked don't generally have enough freedom to go out with people
Yeah. Yeah.
always, so it's kind of a harder thing
Be
to
able to
spot.
see.
I feel like because it's also quite rare.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like what traffickers like, yeah, go to your job down the street and I'll pick you up later. Like, who's agreeing to that? Like, it's
True.
just
I think
so,
the only ones would be the ones that are like working off debt, thinking that they're going to
yeah,
like get their,
eventually pay off and get to
yeah,
be free, right? But
yeah,
no, a lot of it was just be very vigilant. I wouldn't necessarily recommend carrying like weapons or like
no,
mace or anything. Like you can if you want to get those keychains that have little like doohickeys on them, but like I don't know. Our purpose is not to like scare or like
no,
stress out or to like ignite kind of fear, but it's just more along the lines of like being aware and being conscious of like, yeah, if you have a gut feeling and some guy in the parking lot's looking really weird and you just don't like it, you don't have to like go into a store,
yeah,
go into worst case, go to your nearest store and ask them to please either just tell them
walk you
I
out.
sit here for a bit. Can you please call the cops? Like whatever the case is. Um, Nights out, if you go out and you like, I feel like girls get probably targeted on nights out, like girls nights and stuff.
Yeah,
It says watch your drinks, which is a big one, which is very obvious. I feel like
yeah.
all women know that one. And don't be giving your
Or
number
maybe
out to like
under,
random
yeah,
strangers or going to random like parties or events with people you don't know. But it was all really the basic stuff, but I feel like it's also stuff we forget because we get so complacent and it doesn't happen to us, it doesn't happen here, it's not
we just want to
my
have fun too
problem.
sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
so reminders here and there are not a bad thing, but it's just, yeah, get your heads out of your phones every now and then, live presently, and just, yeah, keep an eye out because as much as we talk about all the bad guys, there's not very many out there, but there's still enough that it's something to just consider and keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like those things, the information, just having that logged in your back of your brain is just always better to have and not need than need and not have,
Yeah,
right? So it's like think
for
I don't
sure.
feel like there's like, yeah, it happens a lot. I don't think it's every single person. I don't think it's every single time. I don't think any person, every other stranger that approaches you, like, that's what's sad is that
Yeah,
everyone's afraid of each other. But I think the reason more people are afraid of each other because they can't really pick people out anymore. They just assume everyone's bad people. And it's like, no, like learn to understand how these people
yeah,
operate a little bit more, what they're looking at. And I would also say, like we said in the grooming one, if you are a single mom, especially, or a woman by yourself, like just be very careful with like false promises and like those kind
yeah.
of things because they do go after vulnerable women too. They're like by themselves, and all of a sudden this guy's love bombing you, and everything's so great. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like be aware, especially a mom with kids, like single moms. We
Yeah,
said in the last episode with grooming, like they try to be your best friend, they try to be heroes, and then then all of a
it,
sudden they've groomed your children into liking them more than you, or that they're just going away for a vacation, and then they
I
take
feel
your kid
like
away.
it comes down to like the very tried and true. If it sounds too good to be true,
It is
chances
most likely.
are there's something going on or there's just something very unkosher about the whole situation. I am very
Yeah.
much a believer in, yeah, if it sounds too perfect, you lose me. You lose me instantly. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, no, there's something wrong with this. I don't like
Yeah.
this.
Oh no, I just won $1 million. No, no,
Yeah,
that's
$10
way too
million
easy.
dollars
Take
from
it
a
back.
stranger
Yeah.
in South Africa. Well, how
Yeah.
kind of you, sir. Like,
Yeah. Oh, gee, thanks. No, don't.
yeah,
And again, too, like any victims that are a part of that, like obviously, like there's no way you could have known. There's no way anybody could have known. Like you could also
that's
be
a
as
big part.
prepared as you want, and it could
The
still
self
happen. But I
blaming.
think,
It is
yeah,
not like, yeah, that is a big one. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong per se. It's just you were a lot of the times in the wrong place at the wrong time and
and it's a victim.
looked good to them and you were just the perfect target to them. And it sucks. And that is such an ugly excuse and thing to say, but it a lot of the times the worst part is I feel like a lot of the times they're very like they stalk schools, they stalk
Yeah.
malls, they
Yeah.
stalk places
Like
and they
sport.
find, yeah, and it comes down to, yeah,
And big events too, guys. Like you're taking
You
your
look
kids
good.
to
Yeah, you
big,
look
big,
like what
big,
they
big events.
need, or I don't even know. Like, I wonder if they have like criteria. If like, okay, you need to get us
Probably
like 6 white kids, or we're looking for Asian kids, or we're looking for
blonde hair.
indigenous kids, or blonde hair, or like 3 to 5 years old, or 6 to 12 years
Probably.
old. Like, that's the
Imagine
thing,
it's probably
right?
a little bit of everything, like a little bit of like if you're looking at the adoption, like there's
Yeah,
definitely, you know, I think people that look for
the
specific
adoption would be
things.
way broader for sure,
Yeah,
for sure. It's funny
right.
too, like now that I think about it, I feel like the foster system could be technically like
100%.
viewed as
Some
like
of them,
trafficking and like
yes. Some of them are
totally
great.
totally bad.
Some of them take advantage of their children and they have a bunch of them so they can make money. And I feel like that's child exploitation at the exact same time because
Yeah.
most of them are not given that money or taken care of well. They're just put in a home with like 6, 7 other kids. And that parents looked at as like, and I'm not saying that's all of them. There's a lot of really great foster
No, but
parents,
there's a
but
lot
there's
of really bad
also
though.
bad ones.
For
Yeah, you
sure.
hear a lot more. So yeah, 100% think that. And again, like we said, like Hill said, we're not here to scare anybody. We're not here to say this is everything. We're just saying being aware and not acting as if like this is, if you believe it happens in another country, then I'm sorry, you need to give your head a
Yeah,
little bit of a shake and think about that.
yeah.
And especially if you have kids, like if you think, oh, that's never going to happen to me, that's not true. Didn't that girl just in Alberta not that long ago get kidnapped and then they found her
And
when she's
taken
like
to where was it? The States?
the States within a couple days and she was about to be trafficked or something like that.
Yeah,
So
for
it
sure.
happens right here.
Oh, this is
Um,
awesome. Shorty's running away as I'm filming a podcast. She's going next door, so don't worry.
oh, that's nice. We're gonna go on a walk. Hopefully we don't lose
Yeah.
you. But yeah, guys, like I think we probably try and wrap this motherfucker up. We've tried so hard. Hopefully we get to edit this and it works good. And if not, we'll continue
40.
with an adventure.
Oh my god. Well, I had a good time. Technology was really
Yeah,
against it. Someone's
it was
been
really
like,
against us today. Someone
someone's
doesn't want
keeping
us to
tabs
talk
on our
about.
podcast, and they just do not want us talking.
Yeah, but I
Feels
think that
like
we did the best. We did the best that we could. Follow
absolutely.
us on all social media, guys. Hopefully our next episode's better. But until next time, bye.
See ya.
Thank you guys so much for stopping by the show today. We truly hope that you had a good time. If you liked this episode and you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe to our channels, like our episodes, and turn on those notification bells. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, and Google Podcast. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. Until next time, guys.